We now take you live to the National Theatre, where the Joy Business Health and Wellness Trade Show is currently ongoing.
You are listening to us on the radio. You are on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Nicholas Opoku. To you live from the National Theatre, where we're bringing you the second Joy Business Health and Wellness Trade Show. We're just about starting a panel discussion that promises to be very informative on how we can leverage technology to ensure that our healthcare sector is very sustainable, it's affordable, and also accessible. Our moderator for this session, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Elvis Kumar-Forson. He studied at the University of Ghana Medical School. He currently works as the local representative and lead project manager of Incision Academy, an organization that helps build the capacities of doctors through online learning and training platform. He's also the lead of Trimester Safe Service, a childbirth financial readiness initiative. So if you're ready, our moderator is ready. Doc, over to you. A round of applause for Doc, please.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and I would like to say welcome to everybody and welcome to our panelists. So just quick introduction. We are dealing with leading the charge for technology, innovation for sustainable growth, of course, without leaving out research. And I think we have a very good panel to discuss that. I'd like to highlight, since it's such a broad topic, critical interest area for me will be sustainable growth and innovation. For innovation, it comes from both invention and commercialization of that invention, So from the lab or from your bedroom, when you get an idea, you've invented it. But to make it something that can bring in profit and can be sustainably produced or served in the market, you need to do more thinking. And then you now have an innovative product that can give you return. So I'll be finding out how the panelists would advise us, or indeed how they are practically taking out these innovative approaches in order for us to achieve sustainable growth in our health sector. As I was rightly introduced, my name is Dr. Elvis Kumar-Forson, and I'm passionate about innovation. My latest has been Trimester Save, and I'll take the opportunity to say, if you want to know more about it, just as we speak, you can look at our Twitter handle, Trimester, at Trimester on all networks, and you'll get the information that you want. Welcome again to my distinguished panelists. I would like to start with our doctor from Focus. Just give us a brief introduction of what Focus is about. Dr. Mankwa.
Thank you very much. The foundation of complex orthopedic spine, Focus, was set up specifically to address the health challenges of people who have spine conditions. And by that, we're talking about complex spine. Complex spine conditions would include scoliosis, which means a lateral deviation of the spine, kyphosis, which looks at an anterior or forward or backward bend of the spine. Or sometimes you have a combination of these, which means that the person has both kypho and scoliosis. In addition to looking at this, we cut across the whole spectrum. Some people are born with congenital conditions, such as that which I've already mentioned. But then we also have degenerative conditions that take place as a result of aging. If you've heard the term arthritis, it affects almost all the bones, and the spine is not spared. And some of these are associated with a lot of symptoms, sometimes with disabilities, which have to be corrected in order to prevent paralysis or eventual crippling of people who suffer from these conditions. Focus not only focuses on the spine, if I should use that term, but also gets involved in joint surgeries, as well as surgeries in the pediatric age group. So we are set out to ensure that the world stands tall, and key to what we do involves research, innovation, and technology. And I'm very happy to be here because, I mean, it is an apt topic at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Focus wants the world to stand tall. Ms. Professor Annan from Noguchi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. So the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research is part of the University of Ghana, and the institute was established in 1979. And so really, this year we are 40 years old. So we are happy to celebrate with Joy Business. So what we do really is that we have a 3-point mandate. The first mandate we are charged to perform is to conduct research into infectious and non-infectious diseases. So we have no restrictions. The only caveat is that it should be of public health importance. But you realize today we are in a global world, and even a disease like severe acute respiratory syndrome in China or Asia is of public health importance in Ghana. So you can imagine our mandate. The second thing we do is to build capacity. Capacity, especially through training, postgraduate training, training the next generation of scientists. And so we are charged to ensure that we replace ourselves and replace critical capacity in various health and industrial facilities. And we also build a capacity beyond just training postgraduates into training health professionals. And the third thing we do is to provide specialized diagnostics. So when the hospital systems, the health systems are finding it difficult to identify and to treat a particular disease condition, we come in to try and find a solution to it. And besides that, we also do another critical thing, which is provide monitoring services. And this means also surveillance. So for example, we have to look around the country together with the Ghana Health Service and identify even there is a potential threat to emerge anywhere. We are supposed to use surveillance to build our capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Noguchi is a leading facility, not just in Ghana, you know, across the sub-region, and is actually respected across Africa and beyond. We will come to the collaboration and the impact of your collaboration on us. We can have M-Pedigree's rep speak now.
Thank you. So the fourth industrial revolution has blessed our generation with a lot of good things. Communication is now easier, faster, and cheaper than it has ever been. But amongst those blessings are a few cases. One of them is counterfeiting. So essentially, owing to the prevalence of several forms of technologies, it's pretty easy for anybody with minimal resources to mimic any brand at all, whether it is a bottled water or an auto part for a vehicle, or a cologne, or a shoe brand, or a piece of clothing. Now, if it's a piece of clothing, we can all agree that the risks there are pretty low. What if it is medicine? What if you were down with malaria and needed an anti-malarial and walked into a pharmacy, got yourself your favorite brand of an anti-malarial, only to discover upon taking the medicine that number one, you were not healed, number two, you lost your money, and number three, there's a possibility that certain toxins have been introduced into your body. So the global counterfeiting problem is a huge problem confronting all countries. It's estimated to be valued around something around 700 billion USD, as the size of several economies around the world put together. Some estimates put it at as high as $1 trillion. My company harnesses technology to help governments, to help regulators, and perhaps more importantly, to empower consumers to become the vanguards, to make informed decisions about their consumption patterns, to essentially be able to authenticate at the point of purchase or consumption whether the specific brand of product they have bought is indeed the original, has the right configuration of active ingredients, has been vetted and approved by the appropriate regulatory authorities, and so on. And so, therefore, is safe for consumption. And if there are any effects, we are able to establish the pathway for them to communicate to the appropriate authorities for redress actions to be taken. So essentially, that's what we do.
Excellent. So that's a true communicator, isn't it? We had the minister talk about giving feedback to the government, and I like the last bit that said you have a channel for people to, report back their grievances. We also had the FDA, who I believe are still present here, and he also mentioned about not able to track down some illegal activity. We will see how technology can help us leverage that. I would like to say to listeners that this discussion is also streaming on myjoyonline.com, and listeners can also join the discussion on social media, #JoyBusiness. A number of the things we'll be discussing about, I made reference to a very good publication that has just come out from the School of Public Health, which I think takes on a political twist to its naming. It says the state of the nation's health. And this is very much what we need to know about to identify the interventions that we need to put to get our state better. If you want to have that link, you can get through on social media. I'll post it there. You can also send a WhatsApp. You'll get an automatic response to 055-738-9017. 055-738-9017. You will get an immediate response to see that document, and you can send your questions as well. All right, so to exactly what we are about in our various facilities, again, I'll start from focus. I want us to take a deep dive into exactly what you do in the area of research and technology. And in the next round, we'll come to how you are sustainable by way of funding. Yeah.
Thank you. By way of research, we know that, or it's been established that we do see very complex spines in this part of the world. That is precisely so because elsewhere people are screened early, deformities are detected early, and so they do not get to see the variety of curves that we see. I wish we could project some of them so that you could see, the kind of curves that we are talking about. And so through research, we've been able to reclassify the spine deformities using our own terminologies. So we have things like the alpha, gamma, and omega curves, which has been accepted internationally, as a way of classifying some of these. And that's simply because you go out there, you would not see someone with a degree of curves that we are seeing. By the time they get to, half the degree of curves that we see, either they would have been operated on or some intervention would have been made. And so this is one thing we've done in the area of research. I'm also happy to say that our nutritionists have also been able to show scientifically, and this has also been accepted internationally, that instead of using the weight and the height of an individual as the composite in calculating his BMI, we use the arm span. And that's because, obviously, you would agree that in someone who has a curvature of his spine, he's not going to attain his full height. So if you use that height in calculating the BMI, what you're going to be getting really is going to be a grossly exaggerated figure. And so in its place, what has been accepted now internationally is the use of the arm span and then the weight of the individual in lieu of the height of that individual. The other thing I would like to talk about is the risk assessment. Obviously, if I took you to theater and I told you your risk or odds of surviving are 0, I don't think any of you would follow me to theater or would like to be operated on. And so what we try to do is to risk stratify the patients that we see. And we've devised what we call a focus scoring system, which also has been accepted internationally. That focus scoring system looks at a few parameters, which I'll quickly list out. We look at the degree of the curve. We look at the pulmonary. When I say pulmonary, I'm talking about the lung reserve of these patients. So to digress a bit, you realize that people who have scoliosis or kyphosis also have some compression on their lungs. And so their ability to respire like you and I is impaired. And by extension, their ability to withstand stressful surgeries such as what they undergo at Focus is also something which is greatly impacted on. So we risk stratify them using the pulmonary function as one of the parameters. And then also we look at the level of the curve. You realize that the spine, if I may use the small model I have here, the spine more or less ranges from or starts from where the head ends all the way to the sacral region, around where you have the buttocks. But you can have a curvature at any point within this length of spine. So we would look at the level, and that would also inform, the risk score someone is given, and by virtue of that, it adds on to the risk stratification. The other which we do is the assessment by anesthesia, which is called the ASA score. That also goes into the risk stratification of the patient. So in a nutshell, these are some of what we do in terms of the risk stratification of our patients. I'm happy to show you this piece of equipment I have here, which we call the Halo Ring. Now, this Halo Ring was devised, or rather, the concept was thought about by our founder and put into what you see placed on the table. Now, how it works is someone comes in with a complex spine deformity, and what you simply try to do is to ensure that you minimize the degree of the curve before surgery. And so by putting this Halo Ring on the skull, by the use of screws, we exert what we call traction. So the patient is going to be in traction sometimes for an average of 12 weeks. It could range to sometimes up to 20 weeks. And during this period, you gradually see a stretching out of the spine. Okay, so we get to a point where we say the patient has plateaued or the spine has plateaued, and that is the point at which we intend to fix the patient. So the use of not only research but also innovation has brought about this piece of equipment, which is also internationally recognized, I must add, to help minimize the risk associated with spine surgery. And I've also talked about the risk classification of our curves, which has been accepted internationally. So these are what we do at Focus. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Just before we come to the good professor, this is very exciting, isn't it? And as a doctor, I can appreciate where they are coming from, maybe more than the general public. But when we are talking about risk scores and classification, and you are getting innovation going into that part, what we are talking about is that the idea of epidemiology, or the difference of disease with respect to different geographical regions, has come into play. In short, what am I saying? With such high class, high quality healthcare service available here, you do not only save money in traveling outside to do the surgery that you need to do, you actually are getting better care here because they have innovated around what it takes to actually classify the degree of your illness, for example. So, and I can appreciate very much the MC read about how I work with Incision. We do VR training, and for some of the surgeries, we actually had to come to Ghana and shoot them because they simply don't have that degree of complication outside. And so I'm very happy such a high-end service is available here, and I hope the public can appreciate that. We are talking about research. The social media handle, again, is Joy business, hashtag Joy Business. And the king of research, I would say, for Ghana is on our panel. So I would like to give him a bit of a direction because I'm sure he has a lot to say. Our research in the area of malaria, and I know you're a parasitologist, so it's very dear to you. We've heard about the malaria project, and now we are into vaccine administration. How did you come, to that place with us in Ghana here? And then we also have neglected tropical, diseases that I know that you've worked with. And then the last on my list is what was the readiness for Ebola that thankfully never, came into Ghana. And then, of course, you can add what you have already stated in your notes.
Okay, so with respect to research into malaria, the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research has done a lot. Fundamentally, we have departments in the institute, such as the Department of Immunology, the Parasitology, and the Epidemiology, and others, which leverage research into malaria, the malaria disease situation. So we've actually done a lot of work in terms of looking at malaria, in terms of the responses of the human host to malaria parasites. We've done research studying malaria in pregnancy and identifying important molecules that can be used for prevention, even to use in vaccines. We've done research, even clinical trials with other partners in the US, looking at how we can use vaccines to control malaria. And with respect to the ongoing current, malaria vaccine trials, we've been involved in basic research to come up with the antigens, the RTS antigens, which are being used. And the work has been done. All the laboratory works have been done, the safety and efficacy, those issues have all been done before. Now we are in the stage of doing trials in humans. So there is no really any concern, any real concern to do with that vaccine. Now, also to do with NTDs, neglected tropical diseases, Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, we go into deep biomedical research, and then we also go into even the social and socio, let's say, cultural even control aspects. For NTDs, we've done very good work into diagnostics. We, for example, have developed in the past a very simple but highly accurate and non-invasive diagnostic test for one disease which is very common in Ghana. Is called bilharzia or schistosomiasis. And this is a disease that now the WHO is using mass treatment as a control measure. When you use mass treatment, the diagnosis for schistosomiasis, apart from the improved ones that we have developed, is microscopy. But then once you start giving the treatment once or twice, people who have the disease, the parasite eggs that they shed in the urine or in the stool, the intensity of infection goes down. So microscopy is not able to detect it very much anymore. So we need this improved diagnosis to do that. And we position ourselves to deliver on such issues. Take another very important neglected tropical parasite like hookworms. We have developed very, very interesting and important research onto hookworms and done studies in the Kintampo areas to identify that even the standard treatments, the medicines that we use for treating hookworms, some of these medicines are not working well. And so now we are in a very, very interesting research project to determine how to handle this situation and to free our people from hookworm, infections. With NTDs, we really are deep into even involving a school-based approach into controlling the parasitic infections. So through education and sustainable treatment, and then also testing, we have involved communities in various parts of the country to be able to achieve reasonable levels of relieving the communities from the infections. And in one study that we did in the past in Adan, in the Dangbe East district at that time, what we found was that after about 3-4 years of active deworming and treatment and control. Even the children in the schools, their educational performance, their performance at the SSE changed. And for the first time, they got 100%, pass rates and things like that. So it works very well. And then, of course, the Noguchi Institute is a leading biomedical research institute. So one of the things the institute has done, as far as research is concerned, is to maintain a cutting-edge research capacity ahead of everybody. So, for example, in the 1980s, when HIV/AIDS came up, the first case of HIV/AIDS was diagnosed at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research in Ghana. And when we diagnose that case, we go further to consolidate the systems for detection, for confirmatory tests and everything. And then we roll out capacity building to the Ghana Health Service. And so that's what we do until now. We stand in for only very difficult situations. And we still support the research in terms of looking at the HIV/AIDS, CD cell counts and things like that.
Tuberculosis.
Yes. Tuberculosis, we've done groundbreaking research looking at tuberculosis, the typical tuberculosis for humans, and also the animal tuberculosis, tuberculosis africanum, and we have really done, we made a lot of observations about how these tuberculosis species are different and how they are changing in terms of potential for drug resistance and things like that. And we have actually, together with the Ghana Health Service and others, been able to come up with the discovery that now we have extremely drug-resistant tuberculosis in the country. So all these put us in a position of an informed decision for policy change to take decisions that can protect the people. We did contributed to one very significant event like that in the past, to do with malaria, when we were using chloroquine as a treatment for standard treatment of malaria. And then we found that through surveillance, the treatment is not as effective as it used to be because the malaria parasite was changing. And as a result of that, we were able to, with the partners, of course, come up with information, evidence-based decision that the Ghana government and policymakers were able to use to change the treatment from chloroquine to the combination therapy. When we come to a disease like polio, the Noguchi Institute has made a significant global impact. With polio, we played a critical role in the whole world identifying that very early vaccination, even polio at birth, was possible. Came from Noguchi. And we do a lot of also in rotavirus research and others.
Thank you very much. Extremely exciting. We ought to, pay a lot of homage to our scientists who help to protect the public good. A lot of it for the sake of not causing fear and panic. It doesn't come out for the threats, but they do a lot of work, under the out of the limelight. We are coming to mPedigree, a group I'm very interested in because of their innovativeness. We just talked about malaria, and there was a change from chloroquine to artemisinin-based therapy. In general, we have a 5% counterfeit rate in the country for drugs in general, which is very significant. Don't take it for granted at all. But what's interesting is that for specific artemisinin-based combination therapy drugs, there was a research that showed far higher, counterfeits on the market. Of course, if someone is doing counterfeit, they are not going to do a counterfeit of a rare drug. They want the high-volume drug that they can do a lot of and get rid of very quickly. And so I want the mPedigree representative to go a little bit deeper into what they do in terms of innovation in securing the public good with respect to the health sector.
You rightly pointed out some of the statistics and some of the realities surrounding the medicinal supply chain in a sub-Saharan African country like Ghana. But I'd just like to, for the purposes of contextualizing it a bit more, I'd like to throw a little bit more on the regional dimension. So Ghana is a sub-Saharan African country, And UN statistics indicate that out of global health resources, you have about something about less than 10% being devoted to health pursuits in the developing world. Meanwhile, you have, something as high as 90% of preventable deaths and non-communicable diseases occurring in that same region. So there's a huge mismatch. And for me, that is where I think we have a unique opportunity to use technology to solve some of the problems. Technology because, number one, they can be far cheaper to put together. Number two, they can also be far superior in solving the problems. And to give a bit of an example, as far as counterfeiting is concerned, when it became clear, a few years ago, that counterfeiting was on the global rise, and that even countries in Europe and other advanced worlds were not inoculated, some solutions were put forth. Some of them, such as the RFID technology and so on. But most of them were not compatible with public health expenditures and budgets in countries like Ghana, Nigeria, obviously owing to the cost implications. So you are not just interested in technology, but you are interested in technological tools that are cost-effective, that can address the problem, and that are compatible with the spending patterns in specific countries. If you take Africa, something very interesting that I think we haven't taken note of has happened, which is that we completely bypassed the landline system. We went from not getting connection straight to mobile phones. We didn't go through the landline system. That became possible because of the technological advancements that we saw around that period. We can do that kind of cutting through the maze with a lot of things. And supply chain is very interesting. Now, when you take a country like Ghana, we have a very competent FDA that works very hard to ensure that products, medicines that are on the market are wholesome and are compliant with their regulatory regimes. However, there are still lapses, which is why I believe sometimes we do hear them warning us in the mass media not to buy certain types of products. The regulatory approach to protecting brands, protecting medicines, and by extension, protecting consumers has its own challenges, which is why under the serialization solution, the idea to have the consumers themselves become active participants in the drive to fight counterfeiting is powerful. Essentially, when you pick up this product, aside being assured that it has the proper FDA number, and has the appropriate, instructions on it, which all can be mimicked, by the way, if you, the consumer, can participate in that process by confirming for yourself the authenticity, the originality, the source, and the track and trace process it has gone through, I think that becomes a very powerful tool. Because as the FDA officer rightly pointed out earlier, they do rely on consumers to send in information. He cited a very important example where a media person called in to alert them of a lady who was, essentially erasing expiry dates on products and, extending them by a significant margin. That's a huge problem. Even at the African Union level, at the Quality Assurance Committee at the African Union level, it remains a big problem for them. Products that, in fact, I was shown a product when I visited the African Union headquarters that was not yet produced. Essentially, I think it was a pack of fruit juice, and the manufacturing date was somewhere around 2022, and the expiry date was way ahead. So it tells you how easy it is to essentially change the communication on a product. And so long as the human being is relying on what is communicated on that product, you can see that we're making significant errors. So imagine a mother seeking to buy gripe water for the baby, and then she goes to the shop and then picks it up, and the expiry date there says it will expire in, let's say, 2022, and she confidently goes to give it to the baby. Meanwhile, it expired in 2016. So track and trace ensures that the regulatory process that a particular country has in place is enforced, and if it is breached, it can be easily detected, not just by the regulatory officers, not just by the health officers, but also by the consumer, and that's very powerful. Because if you are buying a product, if you are buying a medicine, yes, the government has a social responsibility to ensure that you get the right product, but I'm willing to wager that the party with the highest interest is the one actually buying the medicine. So our solutions make it possible. These days, just about everybody has a mobile phone, that you can pick a certain information on the labeling of the product. You can key it into your mobile phone, whether it's a smart one or a standard feature one, and then within seconds, extract information critical to that particular product, where it was produced, who produced it, and whether the FDA of a particular country has approved it or not. So in a nutshell, that's how serialization works. It enables end-user authentication, which then makes it possible for everybody in the supply chain to enforce the regulations that the FDA or the appropriate authority in any particular country has put in place for that product. Otherwise, it becomes possible to evade it, just as the FDA official cited, involving a woman who was changing expiry dates.
Thank you very much. We will be coming to question and answer time just after this last round of questioning that I have for them. And I would like to say again that #JoyBusiness is a good place to put your questions. It will be brought to me. You can also WhatsApp on 055 738 9017. 055 738 9017. And then we will take it from there. My last round of questioning is something very important. It's to do with sustainability. And sustainability will always come with adequate finances. So I'm tempted to start from you, but would you like to start? You're not tired, you're fired up, so we'll start from that end and end here. Are you sustainable? The government is the biggest buyer in most places. Are you looking to engage with government agencies? Or like you are a startup, and I do startup work as well, it seems that going to the bottom of the pyramid most of the time is your best bet to rake in any revenue as you wait to catch the big fish, which is government agencies. So just tell me about the financial situation to make this available widely in Ghana.
So on sustainability, I'll share two opinions. One is philosophical, the other is a bit factual. Okay. So you would agree that Africa finds itself in this generation, in this era, in a rather difficult situation. If you look at the challenges that plague the globe, we seem to attract a significant portion of it. That obviously is unhealthy, but it also presents a unique opportunity for us to do a certain type of thinking. Because when you are fed and your insurance is in order and your mortgage is sorted, you tend to think on a certain level. But when your back is against the ropes and your systems are difficult and essentially when life is difficult for a people, they also tend to operate on a certain kind of level. And I think it's a unique opportunity for us, especially because we are home to the youngest population in the world, to give birth to unique solutions from the African perspective. You would agree that being someone of a startup extraction yourself, a lot of the solutions that we have seen coming from other parts of the world have not necessarily worked very well in Africa. Some of the very unique African-oriented solutions have had tremendous impact. Take mobile money, for instance, which has completely disrupted and redefined how we can imagine how to bank the poor and how we can build products on top of that, such as, for instance, who we can give loans to. The process in Ghana has been slow, but I'm happy to learn that now most of the telcos are offering soft loans, by observing your credit, your airtime buying behavior, and so on and so forth. Now imagine where we could go from there. Imagine that we could use similar social algorithms to determine who deserves medical insurance. And imagine if we could stagger the premium for a year over a certain period of time, so that you pay a certain percentage of it each time you load your airtime. That would be powerful in redefining how insurance is sold, but more importantly, in driving social impact. So I think that we ought to approach sustainability from that unique African, Afrocentric perspective, that we have extremely limited resources, but we have a significant mass of people to cater for. And once the innovation comes from that perspective, you tend to be able to naturally give birth to solutions that are sustainable. For our purpose, and that's the second part of my response, which is the factual part, is that in Nigeria, which is where we have had significant scale, because we've been able to, we've been able to work with the government, which has passed regulation, making serialization a requirement for certain categories of products. In Nigeria, when the solutions like ours were deployed, it took about 3 to 4 years before the prices of the medicines went up. That is indicative that the industry was able to absorb the cost implicit in the adoption of the technology and not pass it on to the consumer. So for me, that's a huge success case. And it fits into the orientation background I gave. That once we approach our problems from an Afrocentric perspective, understand that we need to drive impact, we need to improve lives, but we need to do so using tools that are public health expenditures compatible. We tend to think in ways that make us create solutions that are also very cheap. And so on the issue of sustainability, I think that we are very sustainable. Typically, our fees are, the last statistics that I saw, less than 5% of the cost of the product. And typically, you will find that most industries are able to absorb that quality assurance. They're able to absorb it as a quality assurance mechanism, and they don't pass it on to the consumers. Unlike how you would have in most industries where any tax or any additional cost on the product is easily passed on to the consumer. We have seen that. We've seen a different trend in Nigeria, for instance.
Thank you very much. So for those who are doing startups in the health sector, it's important for you to think about that as well. In the area of the step that we talk about, product market fit, you have to be very sensitive to pricing. You cannot conjecture a very expensive solution and expect to gain traction in a place like Sub-Saharan Africa. As he said, the global spend in health, only 10% is expended in Africa. So it's very interesting that you were able to create a solution that fits into the quality assurance budget of the producing organizations so as not to pass that on to the consumer. So very quickly to Professor Annan, Noguchi, is this sustainable? I read about a 1 billion proposal in Japan with the minister. How did that go? And do we have hope that our research will continue to receive funding?
Yes, so the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research is very, very sustainable. And let me explain why I say so. The first reason why the institute is sustainable is because we have been able to build a very strong research capacity. So we have researchers who are of international standard as far as their level of expertise is concerned. So our main source of funding actually is international competitive grants. We write grants and proposals and compete with scientists in all other countries. And we win grants. And the grants, when you win a grant, there is a portion of the grant, budget that is dedicated to what we call FN, it's like overheads for institutional maintenance and name it what. And this is, it varies for different funders anyway, but the University of Ghana is set at 25% now. So we use those monies to maintain the institute. And if you come to Noguchi today, and you look at our main building, which is 40 years old, you'll be surprised, you won't believe it. It is one exceptional example of a success project as far as maintenance is concerned. So that is one. Two is that our main core business is research. And research goes with technology, and it goes with innovation. And if you can be able to combine technology and innovation to research, it leads to one product, what we call IP, intellectual property. And intellectual property leads to one direction, commercialization. So really, that is one big thing that is a drive for us. And as we speak now, through our research, and when I answered the first time the question on NTDs, even with NTD research, we have been able to extract and isolate very highly potent substances from plant medicines. And these substances now have been confirmed to be capable of killing for treatment of trypanosomiasis, what we call sleeping sickness. And the compounds are also active against malaria. So you see, this shows us the direction and the trend for the future, that the Institute is going to begin to make major breakthroughs through IP and commercialization. And when you go into that direction, excuse me, one product can lead to billions of dollars, especially when it is applicable worldwide. like artemisinin that is now a global, sensation, that kind of thing. Now, the other thing that makes Noguchi Institute very sustainable is that I told you the second mandate, capacity building. We offer training, and especially training of, health professionals. So that kind of competent training for professionals is one direction that, excuse me, now we are unfolding. We have started with various development of MOUs with other organizations. We'll be very soon having joint programs with institutions in Nigeria and other countries that will build capacity for them and be obtaining resources for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was in Legon, did zoology, was to go and do parasitology, and then I ended up in Kolebu in a postgraduate medical program. I don't know whether I took the right decision. So it's very good. They are very sustainable, and patents are what are driving, innovation right now. And anybody who has that interest can go and seek that with any biological science background. With that on a higher scale, I would like us to come to FOCUS, who are probably applying this in a microcosm, in a smaller perspective. Are you sustainable in FOCUS? We often see people go to charity to help with surgeries. What percentage have to do that? And as an institution, are you sustainable? Because that's the only way it can be replicated.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to start off with a few facts so that this more or less feeds into the discussion about our sustainability. To start with, since our inception in 2008, we've saved the taxpayer approximately $200 million. And these are costs which people would have paid if they had gone outside the country for the surgeries which they undergo. So, in essence, we are saving capital flight. And with such an initiative in-house, so to speak, I think it's something which government should really have their eyes firmly fixed on, because the sustainability of such an initiative is one that inures to the benefit of us all. Now, for every population, it is said that about 2 to 3% have spine conditions. It can be scoliosis, it can be kyphosis. It means that with what we have done, we have barely touched the surface of the problem. Okay, so it means that there are a lot out there, but like as you rightly pointed, if they do not go to radio stations begging, how are they able to cater or afford these surgeries? Which, as a matter of fact, are actually a fraction of what they would have paid if they went out, to have these surgeries done abroad. We do have a FOCUS Foundation, and it's run on the model of a non-profit organization, which means that we rely on the benevolence of our benefactors, most of whom are outside, who are abroad, to help fund some of these surgeries. But gradually, you know that there is donor fatigue. The question that will be asked most of the time is, so what is happening in your own country? How come you always come to us for funding? And we've had, I'm happy to say, the third in a row of our local fundraising galas. I think the last was about 2 weeks ago, where we have people in society who would contribute to the cause. But then a contribution from someone's pocket does not mean that your business is altogether safe. So what we are also doing as FOCUS is more or less going outside our shores. You realize that if you walk through the FOCUS compound, we do have a sizable population from outside Ghana. But then in addition to conducting surgeries for these, we help to train capacity, especially of the doctors who come and express an interest in spine. We've also partnered with the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons to have a spine fellowship. We're also accredited in orthopedic and also in anesthesia. So this helps to feed into the growth of manpower for the country. Now, in addition to this, just backtracking to the previous point, we go as far as conducting surgeries for patients in Ethiopia and even in Sierra Leone, because a lot of the patients we have come from some of these countries, as well as from within the country. But then you realize that in conducting some of these, it's also associated with cost. We have to think of how we cut down cost. And so if, for example, you look at a child who has scoliosis and has had scoliotic surgery, he may have about 5 or 6 lengthenings of his spine by the time he attains adulthood. And what this means is that whoever is paying would also have to pay for him to travel down to Ghana, for him to have repeat surgery, where you just lengthen the spine more or less in accordance with the growth. Okay, so if you had a child, you would not want to restrict his growth. Okay, you should anticipate that he should be able to grow to be an adult. And I'm happy to say that through research and also innovative technology, we have what I'm holding, which is called a magic rod. It is one of the kind. If you cared to look at one of the top 10 innovative technologies for last year, this was one of them. And how does this work? Now, this replaces the growing rod. And by using it in our surgeries, what that means is that when someone comes for a review, by way of a magnet, we are able to attach it to, there's a bulky piece here. I wish we had a video to show. And then we just dial that magnet, and within 20 minutes, you are expanding the spine by about 2 or 3 millimeters, and the person goes back home. So you do not have to go into surgery with the associated anesthetic cost of overheads in terms of power, in terms of surgeon's time, and you can deploy that to more profitable areas, such as reaching out to people who need our service. In addition to this, I would also like to say that we all know about the ISO certification on a lot of products. In the line of health, we look at what we call JCI accreditation. There's no hospital in the country, I must add, or I must say, that is JCI accredited. And Focus is strongly pursuing that mandate so that we know that we can attract and grow healthcare to attract tourists, not only from within the sub-region, but from outside. If you go through our books, you realize that that is already happening. We've had people from Nepal, we've had people from the Philippines, we've had people from Haiti, and and even the Americas coming down to have surgery done here in our shores. And then also, research is key. We've collaborated with Noguchi Memorial Institute in the area of research, but I'm very happy with what Professor said. Research drives innovation, and innovation drives technology. You realize that when you go out and you are able to publish, you are able to write grants, and these bring and attract funding to an institution. And so research is really key. They have helped through their ethical board, to guide us through. We've had lots of papers, and I'm so happy if you just Google Focus. We have hundreds of papers from, so to speak, the small facility that we have at Pantang. We've been able to publish a lot and also attract funding for our drive. I think access is key to what we do. And so I think that these few points I've articulated more or less help to drive the agenda and also give us a sort of direction in where we are going. For now, it looks as if we're just going around with a pot, begging and asking, but then we're also looking back at government and also at insurance companies to make healthcare affordable. Because once they are able to drive the volume of Ghanaians who have spine conditions, obviously, even if they are paying a fraction, it helps to sustain the dream, which is to ensure that every Ghanaian who has a spine condition does not drop out of school. He's able to raise his head high, he's able to continue his education, and is able to face the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will take a few questions from the audience, and then we'll take those who joined us by social media. It's just great to have those who are here physically answer first. If Mr. James Latte will want to make some comments, that will be fine. Or would you want us to take questions from? Yeah, so any questions? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm Reverend Tete from Salad Master Microwatch Limited. Please, it's like two-in-one question. First and foremost, I want to thank Joy FM for organizing AWTS. Well done, Joy FM. I want to find out from the one from Focus. I have been told, reliably told, that once a spinal cord or surgery is done, you don't remain the same. I want to find out that is true. And also, we have been told, and we know very well, that money is very good and it can be dangerous to influence people's decisions. Since that thing is very good, I want to find out how sustainable and credible it is when we do research and we try to control counterfeiting, as we are saying. Do we really do it, or we compromise what we bring out? Because I have been hearing, according to United States statistics, do we do research that is credible, that can match what United States do or other nations? And then the other one, too, I want to find out malaria, anti-malaria drugs. Once it's introduced into the body, it is told that there's something he damaged in the system, though he's correcting something. How true is it and how credible it is? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Nana Kwame Fojo, and I'm a PR practitioner. My question goes to Professor. Professor, it's refreshing to hear that Noguchi is conducting groundbreaking international standard research. And had it not been for you, I didn't know this. So I want to know to what extent does Noguchi do advocacy in these areas to let the citizens in Ghana know that, an institute in Ghana is doing wonderful works like this. I want to know the measures in place in terms of advocacy. So that's my question.
Okay, we can take a third question if there is before we take answers. Okay, so we will just take answers now.
Okay, in relation to your question regarding once the spine is touched, it never remains the same. Let me say that we do have different degrees of nerve injuries, some of which are permanent and some of which are not permanent, in which case you do expect some recovery. But then, having said this, at Focus, what we do have as a technological tool that we use to help ensure the success of the surgeries that we undertake is the use of what we call neuromonitoring. Okay, so by the use of neuromonitoring, once the screws or once the rods are being placed within the spine, you realize that the potentials are read on a screen. So you know when you are getting close to a nerve or when you are deviating from the course. And it is really an art to watch what is going on the screen. Okay, so once the screws are being passed, they have to go into a particular segment of the spine, of the bone, okay? And then, of course, you have your spinal cord sitting very close by. But then, with the use of neuromonitoring, we're able to tell whether we're going too close or whether the placement is adequate. So I think that helps to address some of your concerns. Indeed, some people have come and said, we want to do this surgery, but we've been told that once your spine is touched, you'll never walk. And I think this misconception has been, propagated over and over again, and people, just because of the fear of surgery, have gone on to develop, paralysis and can't walk or be of use either to themselves, their families, or even to their communities. So I would like to dispel that and say that there is appropriate technology. Sometimes the degree of the curvature is such that, it's inevitable that some degree of injury would occur. But then we look at what would have happened if the surgery did not take place. People, would have lived for just about 6 months and then died. But then if someone is able to sit and at least we use a wheelchair and go to university and then work and provide for his family, he's better off than, being abandoned simply because they do not think he's going to live for long.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I want to touch on the question of credible research and perhaps a little comment also on the malaria treatment damage. With credible research.
With credible research, someone's question from social media is on funding, and I think he's going towards there. With so much funding coming from outside, can that impact on credible research as well?
Yes.
So I've covered your social media question.
Okay. So with credible research, the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research of University of Ghana has really taken steps far back in the past. More than 15 years ago, we were the first to establish in this country what we call Institutional Review Board, Ethics Committee. And actually, our Ethics Committee is the one that has trained virtually all the ethics committees that have come up in Ghana. Now we have close to about 15 of them. Now, what it means is that for research to be conducted and for it to be credible, there must be a clear process of how to ascertain that truly there are measures to ensure that the research is credible. And the ethics process is one of them. At Noguchi, before any research project will be implemented, the scientists, it doesn't matter who wrote the research the project, that research protocol must go through a series of screening. The first is what we call Scientific and Technical Committee Review, STC review. And when it goes, there are peers, research scientists that are on that board that are going to look at that proposal, criticize it, not with the aim of destroying it, no, but with the aim of improving and making it better. So we look at it, review it, bring credible comments, make sure that that research meets global standards. Before that research then is passed on to the Ethics Committee for approval, what I said, the Institutional Review Board. And when the research goes to the Institutional Review Board, again, it is criticized seriously, it is reviewed. And that board has more representation even from outside of Noguchi than those people, scientists from Noguchi. So again, that review is done. And our Institutional Review Board, we have ensured that it truly meets international standards. So it is registered with the US ethics system. And we have what we call federal-wide assurance with a specific number to certify that, yes, this research IRB is certified. So really, apart from that, once the research is to be conducted, we have also put in place a clear system of how to ensure that that work is done according to standards and best practices. And that we call the Office for Research Support. It looks closely to the implementation of the research, even in terms of budget and how the budget is spent. If you say that I'm going to use 10% of the project money for, let's say, the field work aspect of collecting samples, you have to let that amount go into that aspect. So the possibilities of you cutting corners and not collecting the sample in the best way are completely removed. You know, that kind of thing. So we work with systems. And now we have gone also forward to put in place what we call quality management systems in the institute. And by QMS, it means that apart from the research, even the administrative practices, we have 9 departments in the institute. Every department has an administrative secretary who is trained and given continuous, in-service update of training. And this person ensures that everything is documented. The head of department, name it what, working together. So really, we have in place systems to assure that. Now for the malaria drug issue, one thing that I believe that needs to be emphasized very strongly is that medicines are, usually molecules and chemical, whatever, compounds. Compounds can be useful or harmful. You can get a compound that can kill malaria parasites and also kill your own cells. You see, when we are developing medicines, such compounds, we screen them and take them out. So through the medicine development, drug development process, all the toxicity, the efficacy, name it, what they are all done, even in the laboratory before you go to outside to do the clinical trials. So really, the malaria medicines we are using now, they don't have any serious side effects to cause any damage to anything. You can really do treatment of malaria at very relaxed and free, It doesn't cause any damage, really.
It's an important point. So I would like to add that there are what we call over-the-counter drugs, and these drugs usually have a high safety profile as compared to drugs that are strictly prescription. So the systems are in place. I know there can be lapses. And so depending on how dangerous a drug may be, there are systems in place to check how it's administered. Did you get a question? Yes, counterfeiting. Yes, you're saying that is there a true business case, or it's just about making money from you pushing the agenda of counterfeiting?
So we are not necessarily pushing any agenda.
Yeah.
We, as enthusiastic people who wanted to use technology to solve problems, we saw this opportunity a few years ago when the whole world was, discussing the problem of counterfeiting. In fact, when we designed our technology, it wasn't originally to deal with counterfeiting. We wanted to track and trace agric produce, organic agric produce, leaving Africa for Europe. Because typically European buyers want organic foods, and then they want to be able to confirm for themselves that this is indeed organic, and then they are willing to pay more. So we wanted to be able to empower African farmers to earn more money by selling their organic produce to enthusiastic buyers in Europe. It was when we discovered that by simply tweaking the technology a little bit, it could also accommodate the serious problem of medicinal counterfeiting, which is when we also went into that space. But I'm happy to report that in East Africa, for instance, we are doing tremendous work in agric, sterilizing all seeds, ensuring that farmers get only wholesome seeds. This might be a bit new for us, but in East Africa, fake seeds are a big issue. Farmers buy seeds, put it in the ground, and discover a few months down the line that, they got the wrong stuff. And that was potentially, someone who was critical would say that was a potential farming situation. So we are doing all sorts of things. We are fundamentally a technology company, enthusiastic about solving social problems, identifying and solving them. We are not interested in creating problems. We are interested in solving the ones that exist already.
Thank you very much for that answer, enthusiastically given.
There's a question on advocacy.
Yes, maybe you would like to make 2 sentences and then we end there.
With respect to the question on advocacy for Noguchi, really we have realized that we need to do more about reaching out to the public. So we have adopted a strategy of partnerships to achieve that. And we have already started forging such strategic partnerships, especially with the media, and also with the associations that are concerned, involving the media to promote health in Ghana. So we will be very happy to work with the Joy Business. Very happy, yes.
All right. Thank you very much for that final statement. On the panel have been Mr. Eugene Buedu from Head of Corporate Affairs, M. Pedigree. We have Professor Abraham Annan from the Noguchi Memorial Institute, and we have Dr. Ofori Amankwa from the Focus Hospital. It's been a very engaging time. I believe you would all agree with me. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.